Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to talk about the pipeline permitting process. So there was a recent GAO study on this from February of this year, February 2013, that talked about the process. And in that report, it said that FERC does not track the timeframes for these permits being granted. And in light of stakeholder concerns, do you think that FERC should be tracking, I'll ask you both, do you think, yes or no, do you think FERC should be tracking the time that permits are being granted from application to completion?
I think we should be aware of that. My understanding of the INGA report is that it said FERC did a pretty good job meeting its deadlines.
I'm sorry. Report that said that you all aren't tracking how long it takes. That they had to go to public records to identify the lengths of the permit process, that you all kept no such records. Is that true?
I don't want to say something I'm not positive of, but I think we should know how long our process takes, yes.
Great. That's my question. Chairman, I assume you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, on the INGA did report that said that 20% of natural gas pipelines experienced delays of 6 months or more, largely because the delays occurred after FERC's NEPA analysis had been completed, which has a 90-day requirement under EPAC. Is that statement also correct?
Yes, it's my understanding that it is. A lot of the delays are in the conditions that are put on in the FERC environmental permits that have subsequent conditions.
That, as far as I know, that's correct.
So A, FERC doesn't know how long it's taken, and B, it's not complying with EPAC. So in my view, there's work that needs to be done in this permitting process. I'm actually going to propose some legislation that does that. I hope it to be bipartisan. I think it's a good government solution which puts cabins some risk and allows pipelines to move forward where they can have a little more certainty. I guess I'd ask each of you, I'm happy to share it with you and talk to you about it and get your input, but Chairman Will, you suggested that you had some ideas on how we might do this permitting process more quickly. Would you be willing to share a couple of those thoughts with us this morning?
Yes, I think that the challenge that you alluded to is that the resource agencies typically don't have the accountability to come back with an answer. We see the same thing in hydropower relicensing, and it's the way the statute is. And if you created some timeline of accountability, I think they'd be a lot more responsive.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Commissioner LaFleur?
Yes, I do. I agree both on the problem and that we do not control all the other agencies who have to act to get a permit out, and I'd be happy to look at legislation.
Great, thank you. I'd love to give you all more capacity to just control those processes, and the legislation I'm drafting, I think, will move us along that way. I wanted to just, one more thing on permitting that I want to talk about. I won't go through the list of permits. There's a very long list of folks you've got to go please before you get to build some of this new capacity. But I want to talk about a statement that the President has made about NEPA process. He says now NEPA process will have to include an analysis of climate change, at least as reported in an article in Bloomberg on March 15th. From a natural gas infrastructure perspective, it seems to me this could be very problematic in terms of extending the timelines to get pipelines built. As the lead agency for approving the interstate natural gas pipeline constructions, tell me what you think the impact would be if FERC were required to take into account climate change as part of each of its NEPA analysis.
Well, it's not going to make it any faster.
Do you have the capacity and resources to do that analysis? Where would you begin?
I think a lot of it comes down to what is the scope of our review. There's been a lot of controversy about, does FERC review the pipeline it's certificating or the entire life cycle of the gas? And there's been some court cases on that. As long as we are working on the pipeline or the project that we are looking at, I think if new laws are passed, we will incorporate them in our review.
That's a good statement. It's we're cabined by the certificate in front of us, and that's not something we've done. And I don't know how we develop that expertise. I'd leave it to our Office of Energy Projects.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it either. You don't have the expertise, in fact. Yes or no? Do you think you have statutory authority to do that today, to consider climate change as part of a NEPA project?
Maybe we should review the court decisions on that before we
Okay,
get back.
I'm happy to let you do that. But I would appreciate a response to whether FERC believes, or you each, the commissioners, believe you have the statutory authority to consider climate change as a part of a pipeline, interstate pipeline approval process.
I'd also like to get back to you on that.
Thank you. I yield back.